You I look pretty today, don't I? Mac Engel, Fort Worth Star Telegram, Engel Angle Podcast, here to talk Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Of all of the big, popular, and successful groups, teams, bands, whatever you can think of, there's nothing like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders for a variety of reasons. Chief amongst them, you don't know who any of them are. Can you name a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, first name and last name? Any of them, ever. This group has existed for decades, and yet they really thrive in obscurity. You walk into a Dallas Cowboys home game at AT&T Stadium, there's pictures of all these players from years gone by. Roger Staubach, Jason Witten, Cliff Harris, Hall of Famers, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Dak Prescott. And then there are pictures of those larger-than-life figures, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. And you probably don't know a single one of them. It's an amazing existence, and it's an amazing creation to have this brand that is universally beloved and known, and no one knows who they are. 20-some years ago, HBO's television show Hard Knocks featured the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders in a behind-the-scenes about the actual team during training camp in San Antonio. I think it was in 2002. And easily the stars of the show were the directors of the Cowboys cheerleaders, Judy Trammell and Kelly Finglass. Now, they became more and more popular with the CMT TV show Making the Team, which is the reality show about the girls who are trying to make the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader squad. Now here we are in 2024, and Netflix has jumped into the world of Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders with their top-rated docuseries about the Cowboys cheerleaders. To talk about the reality of this reality is a former member of the team. She's Sydney Durso. She was a squad member for 7 years, and she's joined me to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. When you look back on that, were you too young for that? Like, 18's young.
It was very young, and I remember when I made the team, Kelly's last question to me was, "Are you sure you can handle it?" And I was like, "Of course I can handle it."
Yeah, what were you going to say?
I graduated high school. I was 16. I walked at graduation. I turned 17, but I was young. And I was top like 10 or 15 in my class. I had a year of college already done. Like I took a credit. So I felt like I didn't feel too young. But I was talking to my mom. This is so funny. And because I was telling her I was going to do this podcast, and she was helping me relive some old memories. And I remember when I found out I was, auditioning, I thought that the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders were these, 30 and 40-year-old women, because they were not from the way they looked, but they were so glamorous. Yep. And I wore my hair in a bun, no makeup. And I was like, I am 17 years old. How am I going to fit in there?
Was it ever awkward being that young, graduating,
No.
being that young in those environments where everybody's a year and two older than you at least?
Yeah, I'm sure there was a little bit of a difference there. It's also hard because when I made the team, now when I watch the show and I know these girls come from everywhere. When I made the team, there were a lot of girls from Dallas, and they grow up dreaming about being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
Right.
They also know each other, which is totally fine. I mean, they're from the same area, they know each other. When I came in, I didn't know anybody. I had my hair in a ponytail. They were like, "Take that down." I was like, what? I had no idea what I was doing. And I made training camp. It was the very first meeting. And you stand up and you introduce yourself. All the girls were introducing themselves, and they had inside jokes because they knew each other. So I was like, oh gosh, like I need an inside joke. Everybody seems so funny. So I stood up, and now, I can never live this down. Everybody remembers it. But I stood up and I said, "My name is Sydney, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "But you can call me Sid Vicious because I'm full of muscle." Nobody laughed. I think maybe Kelly laughed. She made me feel a little better. But everybody just stared at me. And I remember a girl came up to me after and she was like, "What were you doing?" I was like, I don't know. I thought I was, vibing. So maybe that was because I had just turned 18 and I was still a youngin', but I was trying to be funny, and now everybody calls me Sid Vicious. So
Is that one of those things that you practice? You're like, oh man, this thing is a winner. I'm going to kill it with this
I mean,
line.
I was practicing in my seat 5 minutes before I stood up. I was like, okay, I have to have something. But yeah.
Did you have any? So my exposure to the team was basically through Hard Knocks. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of Cowboys fans were in my boat, which was
Mm-hmm.
that was the first time we'd seen it. That was 2003. And that was the
Okay.
first time we'd really been exposed to Kelly Finglass and Judy
Mm-hmm.
Trammell. And I don't know if you remember seeing that, Sydney, but the way the producers did that, they
Yeah.
came across as boot camp instructors, and they were murderously hard on the girls, telling them they were overweight, all these different things. So that's what we saw.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, did you see that?
Have you seen the new series at all? The
No,
Netflix.
no, 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 I'm
Okay, well
not.
you're gonna have to watch
Okay.
it. It's interesting to watch, but they definitely put a lot of pressure on us. They've gotten better about it over time because there was a show for, I don't remember how many seasons. You'll have to look up how many seasons CMT ran, maybe
Right. It
15.
was a
It
long
was
time.
a good amount of time. And you watch that back and you see the things you say and the pressure you put on. I think they have to keep a little bit of that pressure because it keeps the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders the best of the best. And I just grew up. That pressure doesn't really get to me. I
Was it
kind of
accurate? Because reality television, you never know. Like when you, was it
reality,
accurate, Sydney?
yeah. I mean, what they show on the show may be a little bit exaggerated, but I would say it's pretty real. I mean, I would say in real life it's even tougher than they show on the show, on either of the shows. But I don't. There's something about it that we also thrive off of. Like, of course, we don't like being told certain things, but it's like this thrill of like, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to be in shape, I'm going to dance as the best that I can. So it's like we like the pressure, but we don't like the pressure. So it's kind of a weird feeling.
So I've talked to some, well, when I was covering the team, occasionally you would see him come in to
Yeah.
Valley Ranch.
I was,
And
yeah, you probably saw me over there on that side.
maybe, yeah, you might have been there when I
I
covered
did
it, but
Talking Cowboys.
but I remember one of them telling me what the schedule was. And I'm like, oh
Yes.
my God, that sounds like a job. And
I mean, it is a very demanding schedule
was it
for
a
sure.
job?
So we actually had to have a part-time or full-time. We had to have a job outside of cheering
Mhm.
because cheering for the Cowboys wasn't technically a job. It did take up all of our time, but it wasn't a job. Which it didn't. When I cheered and looking back on it, I know it sounds cliche, but the memories, like the experiences I had, I know people hate it when they're like, "Oh, it's not a job," but the memories. But it's so true. The things I did, when would I've ever been able to do those things? They were the best experiences ever.
So for you,
So
it was totally worth it.
it was totally worth it for me. I mean, I went on USO tours
Yeah.
overseas every Christmas for our troops, and I just did so much in the games and the appearances that I wouldn't trade that for
So there was
money.
one thing I remember. I was pretty young, and I was covering one of the appearances at
But
the Salvation Army, which
yes.
obviously the Cowboys have a long relationship. It's a priority with Jerry Jones, and they put me on the bus. There was a couple players, and there were a
Mhm.
couple cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders were in the jumpsuit. Sydney, you know what I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think nothing of it. I'm visiting
Yes.
with the players. We get to the Salvation Army. We go inside, and everybody's excited because the players are in their jerseys, and then walk the cheerleaders in the jumpsuits. There's like two of
Hmm.
them, and then out of the corner of my eye, the young woman takes off her jumpsuit, and she's in her uniform. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, it's almost uncomfortable.
Yeah, I could
No,
see
it
that.
was for me because I'd never done
Yeah.
that before. And for her, it was nothing. And
Hmm.
then all these little kids come
Yes.
running up to her. And I'm
Hmm.
guessing at some point you did that.
Oh
That
yeah,
was
all the
that
time.
first time you did that uncomfortable or awkward?
I never had that feeling, but when you're in the uniform, you put on a different persona. You're still yourself, but a lot of people compare it to like a superhero. You just feel like you have these superpowers. Their faces light up. They're not looking, at certain things on you. You're making them feel good. Even when we went overseas to perform for our troops, we would do camps for their families, and that was like where the impact was, because the way that the kids light up when they see us walk into the room, and then we teach them dance, we tell them they're beautiful, we fix their hair, we're playing with them. It's just like a superhero, and it's a feeling that unless you're in the uniform, it's really hard to explain. But that's why girls have such a hard time turning their uniform in, because you're like, don't take that back from me, like this is me. So
You need
yeah,
to
it's
keep
like,
it.
no, you don't keep your uniform. So I had the same uniform all 7 seasons. So guess
That's
what?
huge.
Yeah,
Like
I
that's a big
stayed the same size, I guess, all 7 years, and then you turn it in.
Do you have
But
any, like, did you get to keep any mementos?
I mean, they gave us things, boots, palms, like little
Oh,
things
okay.
over time. I was doing on my Instagram story the other day, I found like a box with a bunch of stuff I kept. And it was cool to look at because I did save tons of fan mail, which actually reminded me, it was pretty cool. I was able to cheer at Texas Stadium and the new stadium.
Well,
So it was really fun because I had stuff from Texas Stadium, and that like really brought back memories, because those were two different experiences, like the two stadiums. People who are fans of Making the Team, the older show, they don't know much about me. They think I'm very they think I'm cold and not very friendly, but that is because I didn't talk much on the show. I have like no interviews on Making the Team. And the reason for that, I can explain. When I was a rookie, I was 18 and I didn't know anything else. Somebody came up to me and they said, if you want to make this team, don't give them a story that they can twist and put on Making the Team. They said,
really?
just, yes, I cannot remember who this was. Like I tried to remember.
Wow.
And they were like, if they interview you, don't give them anything. Like you do not want to be on their radar. You do not want to be a story. And maybe that was not the best advice, because I really didn't give America, whatever, my personality. But it doesn't bother me. But I mean, they would interview me and say, "Are you nervous right now?" I'd be like, "No, I'm good."
So
Because I
you
was
were
like,
just a
"Do
one
not
word
give
answer
them
person?
one word answer." I'm like, "Don't give them anything."
Well, did it work for you ultimately to help? Because this, you're leading me down a path that I've talked to one of your teammates about, which is,
Yeah.
when you walk into a lot of stadiums,
Mm-hmm.
especially the AT&T Stadium, who do you see? You see pictures, giant pictures of players, past
Mm-hmm.
and present,
Mm-hmm.
pictures of current cheerleaders. Well, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott,
Yeah.
Roger Staubach, and then I might see your picture up there, and unless I'm a fan of the show, I
Mm-hmm.
have no clue who you are, none. I've got
Yeah.
to be a fan of the show
Mm-hmm.
or the team to know who the personalities are. And when I was talking to your teammate, I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember her name. Anyways, we were talking about just the idea of, wait a minute, there's really, at the end of the day, not that much difference between you and a player, right?
Right.
Except nobody knows who you are. In fact,
Yeah.
I remember talking to someone, it's almost to your own safety that nobody knows who you are.
Yes,
There's
that's
something,
true.
has any of that changed so you can capitalize and monetize on that relationship so it's not just a one-way street?
Yeah. So, starting from the very beginning, just to talk about that a little bit and the safety of it in our names, we've had gone through over the years different things like you only go by your first name,
Yeah.
or you're only going to go by your first and middle. And then they were like, we don't want people having your middle name, your first and last. We changed it up until we figured out the right. Well, I don't know if they ever figured it out, but we just have to be careful. I was telling somebody a story the other day. When I cheered at Texas Stadium, it was a little different than AT&T Stadium. We would leave the game, and part of our, I guess, contract or part of our job description was you didn't walk straight to your car and leave. You walked slowly to your car and you signed as many autographs as you could along the way. But that meant when you're getting in your car, like you were signing like as you were getting into the car. Like that's your car, your private, space. And we did it every single game day. I do remember I got followed one time, but luckily my dad was in town. It was me and another girl. They followed us. And then I called my dad. I said, there's a car behind us, since the stadium. I'm pretty like, I know my surroundings. You can't really fool me. My dad, showed up. We went to a Starbucks parking lot and we were good. But like I totally get it. Like they do have to protect us because with the players, these big tough guys, they have a big fan base. They can usually handle themselves.
Right. Yeah.
But we're on social media. We're, we're making people feel good and making people happy. It's easy for, unsafe things to happen. So we have to be very careful and always have our guard up.
What was the creepiest thing that happened to you or a teammate in your time there, where you were not maybe creeped out or even scared or nervous for a person?
So whenever I cheered, I had a certain mindset. You can't really control other people.
Right.
People are interesting. Everybody has their quirks. Some people are inappropriate. This is just my opinion. I cannot control everybody. So if anything ever happened that was strange or inappropriate, I usually just removed myself. Like I didn't let it consume me. I'm like, no, I'm not giving this the time of day. This is weird, whatever. I was good about that. And so I didn't really have anything crazy. There were times where they changed the rule as well, but we would do appearances and people would grab all over us. That's a little,
Really?
I didn't like that. This was my first year, second year. We didn't really have security at that time, security guards. And so if people came up, they would put a hand around the waist and it was kind of, we'd be like, oh, like, don't do that.
You were
and
having to do like the
so,
block hug?
yeah, like a block or like
like move your hips
out.
and all. Yeah.
But we're like, as a DCC, we know how to handle it. So, we would be unhappy. We'd grab that hand and be like, oh my gosh, like change the subject, like get off, like do not touch me. But we handled it very well. But as the years went by, they have security. And if somebody's hand goes the wrong way, that security is like, no.
The thing we've seen, and I'm sure you can appreciate it just societally, is the way teachers and coaches and instructors talk to the players, right?
Right.
Obviously football, there's been a shift. Some people complain about it all over. It's just not quite the way it was. And
Yeah.
I wanted to go back into something that you mentioned about the way the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders are coached, I guess, for lack of a better word. Is it dramatically different today than it was, I don't know, 20 some years ago, you think?
I think that it has changed a lot. And I'm friends with the girls that are on the team now, and which is really fun because that really is a sisterhood. They're so much younger than I am, but when we get together, it's like we're all the same because we are all, or currently are, Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. And I've talked to them, and they have gotten a lot better with things that they have said. When it comes to the girls' weight, which is something, that really upsets people. They've gotten better about it. It was tough when I cheered. I didn't have a problem because I am a small person. I work hard at it, but I'm also a small person. So, but the girls that did have a harder time, I get it. It's not what you want to hear and it's not friendly. But they've gotten better at the things that they said, that they say. I watched the current show, and it's funny because they still do say certain things that I'm like, oh, don't say that. Oh, but I saw an interview with Kelly today. It was on the Today Show this morning. And I love Kelly. She's great. And she watched the show back, and she was like, wow, I say some things that I probably shouldn't say. And I think that sometimes you don't even know what that you're hurting somebody's feelings. And it really, we smile and we take it, but it like inside breaks our heart. And I think now that there's the new show out, it's going to change more because she sees it. She sees how it affects people and hurts people's feelings. But I feel like Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders have thick skin. So,
well, and let me ask you this. You have children, right?
I do. I have two.
Okay. Sydney, is there a right way? And I put men in this category. This is not just a female thing. I think the whole body image thing is not female specific, although
Right.
I think it's a little bit more predominant, obviously. But I do think one of the hardest things you can tell somebody
Mhm.
is, hey, you're a little overweight. And
I know.
in sports, it's one thing, right? It's a different mindset. But
Yeah.
just in general, overall, whether it's talking to children or talking to loved ones, tell me there's a right way to
I
talk to
know.
somebody and say, hey, you need to lose 10 pounds. How would you possibly phrase that without hurting somebody's feelings? I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either. And you also can't please everybody.
Right.
So the feedback I've gotten when I watched this most recent show, some people in the organization will use different words. So instead of saying somebody's heavier, they pick a different word. Or if somebody's not eating as much, they picked a different word. And then all of a sudden that turns to sugarcoating it. Just get to the point, just say it. And then you're like, wait, but if I say it, then I'm the worst person in the world. I think you have to keep people healthy, and it's like a mental thing too. And you have to find balance with keeping people healthy mentally and physically. But we know that we have to be fit. We have to kick, we have to dance.
Yeah.
You can't be unfit. Like you have to be physically and mentally fit to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Because when you put on the uniform, I know you are you, but you become somebody else, and you can't have like all of these like you can't be bothered by stuff. You can't, and that's just a thing. Like we put on the uniform, you're going to make other people happy. And you can't really think about yourself in that instance. So you can't let weight stuff bother you. You can't let that stuff bother you. I know that's a weird way to word it, but
No, I think what I've wondered about now, especially as I've gotten older and, we have a daughter
mm-hmm.
and, I have
Like
friends of
how
mine
you
who
would
are,
tell them,
pardon?
like
Yeah,
how you would tell your,
that. And I looked at it and I've interviewed a handful of professional models before, and that's a job.
yeah,
That's a talent. That's a God-given ability, but they also work at it. That's not nothing. They don't just do nothing and go take pictures. But the part that I've wondered, and you can address it as a parent now, and having been around these young women who aspire to do it,
mm-hmm.
is it healthy? Is what they do? Because I mean, there's certain things I look in professional sports that
I
is
know.
not healthy. I know it.
Um,
To do that on the professional level, which a Cowboys cheerleader is, a Laker girl is,
mhm.
any of them, is it healthy?
I know. When I look back at my time cheering, I'm very healthy now. I eat very, very clean, and I
Yeah,
work out 6 days a week.
right.
When I cheered, you're very busy. So I loved the busyness. I loved being busy all day. But when did I eat? Never, because like
Really?
there's no time. And you were just like maybe a snack like here and there. So I can't say that even though I was fit, I did have a six pack. I can't say I was healthy. I drank a lot of coffee to get through the day, like massive iced coffees, and then
Right.
protein, but like little bit, like here and there. Not, I never sat down to eat a meal. So for 7 years, I wouldn't say I was the world's healthiest. I may have appeared that way, but my habits weren't the best. I mean, you're just dancing, working out, games, appearances, barely any sleep, but I wouldn't change it. I mean, I loved it.
So a
I'm
long
still,
time ago, no, not that long ago, there was quite a bit of attention, not just
mm-hmm.
at the Cowboys, but nationwide at other groups, from professional cheerleading groups,
Yes.
putting a little bit more demands on the franchises that they work for,
Mm-hmm.
um, lawsuits, etc.
Yeah.
Did those get anywhere? Did it change things for the
I,
better did
yeah,
it?
I think so. So for me, when it comes to the Cowboys, I loved my time there, and anything I do afterwards reflects, like even this podcast with you, it reflects I don't know, just my time there. And I always want to represent the Cowboys in a positive way because that's who I am. And so when stuff was coming out about lawsuits and cheerleaders, I didn't participate in anything. I read a little bit about it, but I did hear that it did change and they do get paid more now,
Great.
which I mean, if that I feel bad that like whoever does, puts that into play kind of gets blackballed. I don't know how that works,
They do.
but
You're right.
it may, it did make a change, which I've heard, which is for the better. When I cheered, I had a part-time job and then I had a full-time job for the whole time I cheered with an amazing boss. So I was able to take time off, but I didn't do it for the money. And like I said, it's so cliche, but the experiences that I had were just unlike any other. I mean, you can pay me a bunch, but are you going to like send me first class to South Korea, China, Japan? Like everything I did was unbelievable that I wouldn't change any of that. But I do think the girls work incredibly hard and we do, swimsuit calendars and we don't ever see anything from that. That would
Well,
be
for
kind
you,
of
what you're
cool.
saying is, let's say you make a couple hundred, you guys made a couple $100 a game, right? It's not a
When
ton.
I cheered, I could have sworn my rookie year was 50 a game and then it moved to like 100, but I think they get like they get in the hundreds now. I don't ever ask, but it's a few hundred, like 500 or 600. I don't know.
But for you, it was worth the trade.
For me, it
It
was.
was.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now
Hmm.
about all of it,
Hmm.
and let's say a 5-year-old girl comes up to you, so Miss Sydney, I really want to be a Cowboys cheerleader. Do you tell them they should do it, or would you tell them, do something else?
I would probably tell them to do it. I have a little uniform for my 2-year old. Okay.
I thought you had a daughter.
Because I do. So I have a 2-year old, and you asked a little bit earlier, like, how would you were asking about like body image and how to talk to your daughter, blah, blah, blah. And for me, with my 2-year old, she's almost 3, but she watches everything that I do and everything.
Yeah.
She's always there. But instead of, talking about image or whatever, she sees me work out for 2 hours every day. She sees me I love working out though. Even here on vacation, like she goes to the gym with like me and my husband. So she sees that. She sees us cook healthy meals. And then she also sees us go out for ice cream every now and then. So we try to find balance. So even though we don't talk about it, she knows, oh, they work out a lot. She even says, the gym again? Like she knows we work out. She knows we're healthy, but then she knows that we like have ice cream and we splurge every now and then. So I think it's important, like you can talk to them, but you just also have to show them good examples and you have to watch what you say because you're right. Like after cheering for so long, I do have these things in my mind where I have to be perfect and on all the time.
Yeah.
So after I had my daughter, if you can believe this, my daughter was 10 pounds at birth. She was huge.
Did she have like a backpack on when she came
She was
out?
massive. Like she came out looking like a full toddler. I was like my husband was like, she's so cute. Like
What did they do to
she's
reattach you?
huge.
Duct
I
tape?
know. And so for afterwards, like getting back to being like feeling like myself, I didn't want to go anywhere or do anything because of this DCC body image I had in my mind. And Kat finally came to me and she was like, stop being a cheerleader. Like you do not have to be perfect all the time. You just had a 10-pound baby. Let's go to dinner. Like stop. And so it's hard because it carries with you forever, but you do have to kind of like push it aside and be like, wait, I'm not on the team. I'm not wearing a 2-piece uniform right now. I can relax and let loose a little bit, but it does always stick with you, like the being perfect and on all the time.
Okay, last question. So you cheered for the Cowboys for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, you endured the pain and agony that all of us who have followed the team have endured in this process of sometimes being really, really good and having unique ability of taking a knife and sticking it in your heart come January. So,
Yeah.
okay. I'm assuming I know you're a football fan, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So as a football fan, and cheerleader, retired
Yeah.
cheerleader.
Hmm.
Tell me what the Cowboys are going to do in this 2024 season.
I know every year we say this is our year, but there is something different about this year.
Oh,
Okay,
come on.
we have a Netflix show going on. We're
Okay.
#1 in America right now on Netflix.
Okay.
Okay, there's big things happening, and because of that, the Cowboys are about to just take it all the way in. We'll be at the Super Bowl this year, and I can't wait. We'll be,
You
yeah,
don't even
so excited.
believe that.
I will throw my two-piece uniform back on for that moment, and you'll see me on the sidelines. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Did you tell your husband this?
No, I haven't
You
yet.
need to give him you need to give him the heads up, like, hey, honey, we're going to the Super Bowl and I'm putting the
Uh,
uniform back on
yeah, right.
and we're going to kick ass this time.
I know.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you very much. I
I
really
know, and you
appreciate
have to
your
watch
time.
the show. It's really interesting to see. It'll give you a different perspective.
Well,
Like,
what I'm really interested to see is how much, because my impression of all of it was
yeah,
Hard Knocks, and I don't know if you remember that they stole the
yeah,
show, and everybody was
yeah.
like, "We need these two coaching the team, not Dave Campo," because they were just, "You're fat." I mean, it was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're saying that." And you're seeing these poor girls cry and all this other
I
stuff,
know.
and now that was 20 years ago, and I'm like, this has to have changed. There's no way in this climate they would get away with that. And what you're
It,
telling me is it's changed.
it has changed a little bit. I wouldn't say it's changed completely, but I get it. Like the girls that I'm friends with, you're right. It never will leave their memory, the things that were said to them.
Wow.
And because I hang out with them all the time and we'll relive old moments and I'm like, this was the best day ever. And they were like, well, for me it wasn't. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Because everyone just had a different experience and it's like, wow, like it can really hurt somebody, or you can be like me, happy go lucky, and you're like, everything's great. But
All
don't, I mean, stuff hurts my feelings too, don't you worry.
right.
But
Otherwise, you're saying you're just
for
dead
the,
inside.
yeah, right, I'm
Um,
just like no
yes, just a
emotion.
zombie. Sydney, that's all I need. You were great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Enjoy
Thanks.
Florida.